A billionaire sheikh handed my little girl a single dollar like he was buying silence. I thought that was the end of it, a tip to make the noise go away, but that $1 turned into seeds that cracked open a locked house, a locked heart, and a lie so expensive it almost swallowed us whole. My name is Clara Mayhew. I've run luxury homes long enough to know how power likes its coffee and how quiet it wants its halls. And for 2 years, I kept the penthouse of Colin Alge running smooth. Glass walls, a view that made the city look small, rules about no kids on the residential floors, everything in its place so grief wouldn't spill. The morning it all began, my daughter Hazel's school shut down for a plumbing mess. I tucked her in the staff lounge with a book and a promise to be invisible, but curiosity is a muscle in that child. She slipped through the door and stood at the edge of the Billionaire's quiet, like sunshine that didn't ask permission. Looked up at the clouds beyond the windows, then looked straight at him and asked if from this high he could see the angels, because her great-grandpa said they live in the bright parts, and he's up there now. Kylan blinked like the question pried at a door he'd nailed shut. He reached into his wallet and held out a single dollar. Without turning his face, buy yourself candy. Then he went back to the window like we were a radio he'd turned down, but Hazel, she touched the soft sleeve of his suit and said thank you, like it was a real gift, not a dismissal. And when I hustled her back to the lounge, I braced for a firing that never came. On my day off, she dragged me to a tiny nursery near the bus stop and spent that dollar on 2 paper packets, marigolds and morning glories. Because the clerk said marigolds are stubborn and morning glories climb even when nobody tells them how. You know what I mean, the kind of flowers that refuse to quit. On the south side of the estate sat the memorial garden for his wife Ela, once a living jewel, now a sunlit ruin, fountains off sprinklers, dead roses sulking under dust. And that Sunday, Hazel snuck through the service gate with a plastic cup, and those seeds found a sunny patch by the stone bench, pulled weeds with her tiny hands, pressed life into tired soil, and with 10 trips to a utility spigot, gave her little square a drink. Nights later, a pinprick lantern glowed in the garden, like a heartbeat. Kaylin saw it from the terrace, came down the path with the guarded calm of a man who hates surprises, and found my kid kneeling in the dirt, humming to Sprouts. "What are you doing here?" he asked, not cruel, just iron. "Growing happy flowers," she said, "with your dollar marigolds here. Morning glories, there. You can't see angels from up there, but maybe they can see these." He stared at the tiny green, then at a rusted control panel nobody had touched since Isla died. Flipped switches like he was remembering how the pumps chugged awake, the fountain bubbled, sprinklers hissed across thirsty beds, and Hazel gasped like someone had turned on summer. He walked her back to the staff hallway, paused at my door, said, "Thank you, Hazel," like the word was new in his mouth, and for a while nothing else changed, except everything small. A book quietly left in the staff library, with a leather cover and a repaired spine. Omar's favorite, he said once without saying the word, "Sun mornings," where he watched from the terrace as Hazel watered with a real can. The gardeners gave her afternoons, where I'd catch him pausing on his way to the elevator to ask what she was learning. That's how the ice in a house thins drip by drip. Meanwhile, the business world kept banging. The Westwood building, a historic property, his company planned to level for a glass spire, was on the docket. Zed, his chief advisor. Smooth as polished steel, pressed hard for demolition. Investors, markets, urgency, that whole sermon. But then one evening, Hazel read aloud about Magellan and said something her great-grandpa used to say, even when you go somewhere new, you shouldn't forget what got you there. And I swear I saw that land inside Kaylin, because the next morning he halted demolition and asked for a restoration plan, a move that made Zed's smile go tight. The garden woke marigolds. Flared orange morning glories climbed like blue ribbons one Saturday. Kaylin came down in a polo and knelt clumsy in the dirt beside Hazel, my wife used to say. "Talk to the roses, tell them they'll be beautiful," he said. It like a dare, then did it for real. Cheeks hot, voice low. I laughed at the gate, and for the first time in years, the sound didn't feel wrong in that place. Yeah, that happened. And that's about when the floor gave way. Zed had been quietly setting a trap, colluding with a rival, cooking numbers, needing that old building, gone to spring, a takeover. He watched the security feeds until he found the variable, a maid's kid who made the boss change his mind. And if you've worked in rich people's houses, you know what comes next. They don't break the thing you love. They break your reputation, so it looks like you did it to yourself. One afternoon, when Callan was off-site with preservation architects, Zed used his MasterCard to slip into the penthouse safe and then into my little apartment 40 seconds in and out, nothing disturbed except the future. An hour later, security swept the staff quarters with apologetic faces and corporate phrases. "A valuable item is unaccounted for." "Ms. Mayhew, we need to be thorough." And they were gentle until a guard slid a velvet box from the pocket of my old winter coat and opened it to a sick green shine Isla's emerald necklace, famous, priceless, unmistakable. "Not mine," I said. "I've never seen that outside the safe, but fear is louder than truth for men who love control." Zed looked truly burdened, a performance he'd practiced, and said for the sake of the household's integrity, the police should be informed. They brought us to the study, the necklace on the desk, like a verdict, and Kaylin, colder than the window glass, said, "Explain this." I couldn't not, because I had no words, but because humiliation chews language into dust, I said. "I didn't do it." I said, "Look at my years of service. Look at my kid." He looked at the necklace, not at me. Zed leaned in with that soft, lethal tone leadership requires resolve. "If you hesitate, you invite rot." Hazel stepped forward, small and shaking, and said, "The sad king wouldn't do that," and for one breath I saw the man from the garden. Then winter came back. "I will not call the police," Colin said. "Scandal is messy, but you are terminated. 1 hour to pack, sign the NDA, leave the keys." We left in a taxi that smelled like old socks. Hazel held her new silver trowel, like someone might steal that too. I found a month-to-month apartment 50 miles out that hummed like a laundromat. Took a double shift at a diner, told my daughter we were strong, because Mayhews are, and tried not to think about how quickly a person can be erased. That should have been the end, a neat box labeled lesson. But guilt is a heavier force than pride when it finally wakes up one sleepless night. Kaylin looked up Sergeant Walter Mayhew and found the man I was raised by. Silver star, clean eyes, a grin like a porch light. Then he pulled raw security logs instead of the edited summaries. Zed fed him, found the clip of a perfect suit slipping into my place when I was in the master suite in under a minute out, with nothing disturbed except the future. And when Zed walked into the study next morning with fresh demolition contracts, Colin hit play on the screen and said quietly, "You were my brother. You used my grief to steer me into tearing down my father's legacy and to destroy a woman who never stole a grape from a fruit bowl." Zed tried a lie about investigating. "But video is a mirror with teeth," security, Kalin said. And they took him assets, frozen lawyers already dialing. A week later, he knocked on our apartment door in a jacket that made him look like a regular man. No entourage, no press. "Ms. Mayhew, Clara." "I came to apologize," he said, and I almost shut him out, because apologies from men with that kind of money often smell like cologne sprayed over a stain. But Hazel walked past me with a small pot holding one orange marigold she'd saved, handed it to him and said, "You can't let one bad weed ruin the whole garden. You pull it and keep growing." He held that cheap flower like it weighed 100 pounds and said, "I was a coward. I believed the version of the world that hurt less to me and hurt more to you. Me, what it takes to make this right. He offered my job back with a raise and hours that didn't steal my kids' daylight. A safe apartment, independent of corporate moods, a trust for Hazel's education, public Sundays in the Memorial Garden, and a full restoration of the Westwood building, with a gallery named for my grandfather. It sounded like a clean shirt on the same old back, but it also sounded like work, like mopping with both hands, he said. Money can't undo, but it can carry. And I am willing to carry until my shoulders give out, he cried. Not performative, just tired and honest. Here's where you expect a bow, I know, but life is messier, and that's why you're still listening. Justice happened when Zed got marched out, and the plan collapsed, sure. But the bigger question is whether accountability is a moment or a muscle. Whether a system that almost crushed you can become a place you'd trust. Your kid to bloom, the garden is alive again. The Westwood Project is moving with preservation. Hazel teaches other children to press bulbs into warm dirt and to talk to flowers, because encouragement matters. And I stand at a window with two truths in each hand. Gratitude for what was fixed, anger for what should never have broken. Deciding every morning to water what deserves to grow. You tell me, did we get justice or did power just change its haircut? Would you take the job back and help build the house you wish existed? Or would you cash the college fund and walk away for good? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me a time someone believed a lie about you and how you fought your way back. Or if you ever made a wrong right what it cost you, hit like and subscribe. If stories about class, trust, and tiny choices that change huge rooms are your thing, I read every note, and tomorrow morning my daughter and I will be out there with a cup of water, whispering to a stubborn little row of marigolds. You know what I mean.